I'd like to thank TJ for the joke this morning. It's a one that you may have heard before, I hope not. Miss Maples was the church busybody.
That was Mildred.
I don't know her name. Her first name was Mildred. Mildred Maples.
Oh,
So anyway, Miss Maples was the busybody of the church, and she would get in everybody's business, know what everybody was talking about, know what everybody's business was, what they were doing. Well, she saw Jack Fowler's car at the bar a few nights during the week, and that Sunday morning went up to Jack and said, "Jack, I've seen where you've been, and I know what you've been doing, and you know better than that." And so not only did she send Jack, just kind of ignored her, didn't say anything, just went along his business. Yet she went around and told a lot of other people at the church. And so it got back to Jack, and Jack decided Jack was a nice guy and everything, but all Jack did without saying a word was that Sunday night he went and took his car, parked it outside of Miss Maples' house, and picked it up a few days later. Jack's a man of few words, isn't he? Yeah, Miss Maples. Yeah. Let's say our statements of truth together, please.
I am a child of God. I am deserving of good in my life. I am accepting my good now.
Today's lesson is entitled Resilience, and I think that all of us know what that means. It means the ability for us to bounce back from something, usually adversity, be able to, we've got a lot of phrases around resilience, things like just do it, even though it's a Nike statement, it's kind of like a resilience statement. Keep on keeping on is what we have to end up doing to be resilient. But when we talk about resilience, usually we're talking about something that's happened in our life on the outer. And so today, though, I guess a better analogy of what the lesson today is, I should have said probably entitled it spiritual resilience, because it's a little bit different. And spiritual resistance has to do with the mind, body, and spirit, and how those three work together. And the resilience part of that is how we learn what each of those mean and how we learn how to use them in our life. So I want to begin with what Charles Fillmore said about some of those things. And if you track it, you could. It's similar because everything ties together in life. Whether we're talking spirituality, human condition, or anything that we talk about, it all ties together. And this talk could be tied very easily together to the idea of superconsciousness, subconsciousness, and consciousness, which is kind of bigger words, so hopefully this will make a little bit more sense to each one of us. But on spiritual resilience, we're talking about the mind, body, and soul, and how they work together. And there we go. And how Fillmore defines mind, and notice that I'm using mind with a capital M, so we all know that that's divine mind, and in Unity talk and Fillmore talk, but the small m mind is our own mind, which is direct correlation, but they do have different aspects to them. But mind, as far as capital M mind, in the revealing word, he says, we mean God, the universal principle, which that's easy to understand. When we talk about divine mind, we're talking about God and everything that happens when we talk about God, which includes all principles. So everything that happens in life has a source and has something that it comes from, a principle that it lives by. I mean, we sometimes look at our life and think, how did that ever happen? When if we could just step back for a little bit, we could see how it happened under some type of principle in life, in the universe. It all works under the same principles, and it does work. This is also another part of his definition. This is talking about mind still. As an aid in understanding how the universal mind creates, we can observe the action of our own mind because we are the offspring of the one mind, and we bring forth in like manner. Now, sometimes we read Fillmore, and if we don't stop and think about what he's saying there, it's kind of like a gloss over. But this is pretty powerful when you think about this. if your mind, in your brain, in other words, in your head, if it's an offspring of God, which it is, and it can produce exactly like the Father or the divine mind, what does that say about you? It's a pretty powerful statement. That means you could do anything in your mind as far as divine mind can do, which is what? Unlimited, isn't it? Unlimited. Very important stuff to know about this. And we're going to find out how all this correlates together. And this is from the Bible, and this just tells you what, when Fillmore's talking about divine mind, mind with a capital M, where it's coming from the Bible, okay? From John 5:19. The Son, which is you and me, whether you're male or female, doesn't make a difference. The offspring can do nothing for himself or of himself, but what he sees the Father doing. For what things soever he do, meaning the Father, these the Son also do in like manner. John 5:19. What does that mean? Does that mean that we always follow what our guidance is? No, but if we always follow what our guidance is, what's going to produce? It's going to produce the divine idea, isn't it? From divine mind. If we do that. But we get to choose that. We'll find out about that here in a little bit. So, that's a pretty neat thing. God, one with God. I like it. Thank you, Francis. Now we go on to this is further into the mind still, the definition. Man in the consciousness of the one mind has no sense of apartness. So when we're following through with that divine idea, using our mind as divine mind, just expressing what we already are, there is no separation. There is none. And see, when that happens, we don't see any separation in each other. Because there is no separation in each other in reality. You know, I always talk about, well, I don't talk about it that much lately, but absolute and reality, and I separate the two. But there is a separate, and I have talked about recently, I think, the difference between reality with a capital R and reality with a small r. Reality with a small r is like, regrettably, I saw on the news this morning a young adult punching an older gentleman that was going to some rally. It was a political deal. But you know, in my mind, it doesn't make a difference whose side was on who. But in my mind, there's no difference between that, whatever that young man has bought into, because the old man, he didn't know that old man. And he was an old man. But he had no idea what that old man represented, or what he thought. But the young man had been taught, or had some idea put in his mind. It wasn't a divine idea. Some idea put in his mind that person is different than me. I don't like him for whatever reason it is. I'm going to punch him. That's totally opposite of what we're talking about here. You see? Divine mind and mind of our mind is the same thing if we allow it to be. So how do we allow this to be? Through affirmation, we can attune ourselves to being. Being, when in Fillmore talk, being is doing that, just following through with divine mind, our mind acting as divine mind. Transmute his thoughts into ideas and accomplish the seemingly impossible. You know, I don't know, some of us are old enough to remember that when President Kennedy started the space program, you remember what initiated that? The Russians, if you remember, were already in space. They beat us in space. They beat us orbiting the Earth. But we had decided, or the political people in power at that time, President Kennedy, decided, you know, we're gonna set our mind, our intention to making it to the moon first, when we hadn't even been in space. And do you remember how almost, at least everybody I knew, as far as Americans, got on the boat, bought into that idea, and said, yeah, we're gonna do this. And what happened? We did it. It wasn't even close, was it? Because communally, we got together with the same idea. That was an outer expression. Now that may not have been a divine idea, although it was, because it did do the impossible, didn't it? Yeah. At the time, that was considered impossible. Now we don't consider things impossible, and I don't know if that slowed us or not, really, on the road. Because we think we can do some things, and we haven't done them yet. which is okay. Somebody has to think we can do it. But we all still have to buy in. No matter where we disagree in something, we can let the other person have their viewpoint. And like on the political thing, whoever wins, let's get together and bless that person, because that represents all of us. Whoever wins. I don't care who wins. I mean, I care, but I want whoever wins, I'm going to bless that person. I'm going to stand behind that person. Because that person represents us in the world. Divine mind is a wonderful thing when we know how it connects with our mind. Now we'll move on to body. And we're talking about our physical body. Yes, we are. But we want to know how that relates to mind, body, and spirit. And why that is spiritual resilience. And we're going through all this. So, the outer expression, this is from the Revealing Word, and whoever does not have the Revealing Word, shame on you. And there's some copies out there, so go get one, all right? And the Revealing Word is not a book per se. You know, it's funny because some people get caught up in this and say, oh yeah, I've read Fillmore's Revealing Word. Oh really? I don't think I mean, I probably read it all through, but not as a book, you know, because it's a dictionary essentially. It's a dictionary. It has all the words and what they mean. Now resilience you won't find in there, or spiritual resilience, but we're putting these things together to show you how it works. Body, the outer expression of consciousness, the perception, the precipitation of the thinking part of man. Now the body is a little bit different. Well, it's quite a bit different than the mind and spirit. It's in the middle. It's because the body is the expression of what our thoughts are. You know, I have to admit that, you know, for heck a while, I shouldn't admit this, but I'm gonna. I've kind of gone down a little bit, I think, in my spirituality. I have. I think I've gone down. I'm back on the uphill swing now. And the reason I say I have is because I bought into some things as far as limitation, and I shouldn't have. And we can't do that. We cannot do that, because why can't we do that in our own mind, in our small end mind? Because when we do that in our small end mind, it expresses as our body. It expresses as us. And if it's limitation, then I put limits on my expression, not only my expression, but my manifestation. And so I'm here to tell you today that I'm not going to limit us on anything anymore. That building is going to be built, and that's that. Okay? I'm not going to limit us on anything. Nothing's going to stop us.
That's right.
We're going to find a way. The precipitation of the thinking part of man. So consciousness in this is, you know, not only consciousness is a unity phrase, is what we're thinking in all where we are in the spiritual realm, but also our conscious awareness. It means both in this sentence. As far as what we are putting our thought power to. I was so blessed this week because, you know, like I said, I was kind of in a little bit of a doldrum for a while, and I saw a guy. I didn't see him. I saw him on Facebook. A guy that I had. He was one of my early Unity ministers. Carl Moran, which was a personal secretary of Charles Fillmore, was the second Unity minister I got close to. But right after him came Bernard Dozier, which he's still around and he's in California. But him and his wife Polly used to teach at this church. And he wrote something on Facebook yesterday that just really lifted me up, because like I say, you get in the doldrums sometimes and it doesn't help anybody. But he said, you know, we have taken time to look at the dark side. And it's really a waste of time because it's got us nowhere. And so what he was doing was going back to the original teachings of unity and focusing on the good. And no matter, we all have things in life that happen to us that we don't want to happen. And that's when we're talking about resilience, and that's why we're bringing this up, is, and when those things happen, depending on how we respond, don't react, hopefully we don't react anymore, but how we respond in mainly our own mind is extremely important. If that thing happens to us and we call it bad, and oh my God, I'm so sorry that I had to go through it and get into this position where I do not feel good because I've had to go through this, and poor old me. Who the hell does that help? Nobody. And it sure as heck isn't going to help me. So I got to look, and that, why I use that word is because that's where I put myself. That's how you put yourself in hell. You think that you are a victim of things, that things haven't gone your way, and things just are against you. And that's not true. The universe is set up for each one of us to succeed. And we have to stay that course to do it. The body is an expression of how we are staying that course. God created the idea of the body of man as a self-perpetuating, self-renewing organism, which man reconstructs into his personal body. Where's Aiden? Is he still with you? He's having a nice little nap, isn't he? Oh, he's waking up? Good. And that's fine. That's perfect for him to wake up. Because you see a baby, no matter what baby it is, and you see how they grow, how they learn things, and how they are happy at first, you know, and everything. And then, along the way, you know, when they get to teenage years and stuff, they've had so much stuff come at them that they kind of get different ideas about things. And I'm not saying that they're bad ideas, I'm saying that they're different ideas, and that not all of them are focused on good only. It's extremely important, and I feel extremely blessed to be raised in unity. I really do. And Francie has some great news on that. I guess you're going to share it next week, about our youth education. But we have to, if at all possible, if we have kids or grandkids, I know, Teresa, you were fortunate enough to bring your kids up in Unity, but if you have kids or grandkids and you can get them in here, please do so. Please do so. They have to, because it's not what necessarily how we teach, or it is what we teach, because all we have to do as far as teachers in the youth ed is remind the kids, because they're so much closer to it, that they are good and that this life is set up for their success. And when they hear that a few times, it'll stay with them a little bit longer, and they will be able to refer back to that when they come to those doldrums or those things that might say otherwise. The body is a creation of God and an expression of what we know about the mind, body, spirit. I got to hurry up, don't I?
No.
God creates the body idea, or divine idea, in man. By his thinking, makes it manifest. That's just exactly what I said. Our small mind is so powerful because it was created by divine mind that we create our life. Now that doesn't mean that everything outside of you is beautiful and everything's perfect. What it means is that I can figure out how to make everything outside of me and everything beautiful and perfect. I don't know if you remember when you were a kid. I do. I don't think about that much, but actually, you know, it's funny to me because a lot of people I know can remember when they're 2 and stuff. I can't remember nothing like that. When I, you know, when I was
1.
no, yeah, when I was 1, yeah. No, when I was probably, I don't know, 10 or something around there. And I guess I remember because there was a picture in the paper. But you know, we went out and I don't know if y'all did this. We did in Irving, Texas. We went out and it rained one day, and we had. It was a paved street, so we had curbing on the street, and we went out and got those popsicle sticks and glued them together, and it rained, like I said, and we got some mud and made a dam, and then, you know, when it rained, we put those little raft things that we had made on the water that's rushing down the street in the gutter, and it was all sorts of fun. And now, you know, you look at that now and think, oh, what big deal, you know, so what? You know, we had no money, we had popsicle sticks, we had nothing as far as what an adult would say you need to have fun, to enjoy life, but we were having the time of our life. It had nothing to do with outer circumstances. It had to do with what we made of our situation at the time. The body expresses what the mind is thinking. As God created man in his image and likeness by the power of his word, so man, as God's image and likeness, projects his body by the same power. Here's what I want you to do as far as your body when you go home. And we've done this a little bit before. as far as, I used to ask you to say your first name and then say Christ afterwards, but I want you to go home, excuse me. And when you get to wherever a mirror is, go to a mirror and look at yourself. Look at yourself and say in the mirror, hello, God. Hello, God. You're the image and likeness of God. That should not be taken as lightly as we do. Celebrate it. Celebrate it. It's wonderful. No matter where you are in life, you are the image and likeness of God. And you're beautiful. You're just beautiful. All right. Let's get to the next one. All thoughts and ideas embody themselves according to their character. That's true. I'm going to kind of rush.
No.
Material thoughts
Yeah,
make a
see.
material body.
No, that's
Okay,
right. Don't
so
rush.
material thoughts make a material body. This is important, so I have to slow down. Sorry. I forgot about that.
We're all in.
Okay, material thoughts make a material body. That's about as simple as you can put it. If I focus only on money, then I may get money, but that's all I'm going to get. That's all I'm going to be worth. That's all, in my mind, that's all I'm thinking I'm going to be worth. I had a guy that was, I might have told you this story before. He was the president of QuickPrint. QuickPrint is where I started my printing career. And he was a super nice guy. QuickPrint was the largest quick printing operation in the U.S. for many, many years. Started in the 1960. But anyway, he was very successful. He wasn't the owner, but he was the CEO. The owner and him were real close. There was about 3 of them that got together. Anyway, they were real close. And so Wayne was his name. And Wayne, when, let me see, this is probably the 90s. So he'd been in the business 30-some years. They were doing great. You know, from an outside look, they were doing fine. For most of us. Yet, you know how some of the big, huge companies, if a store, if an outlet is not doing as good as they project or as good as they want, it could be making money, but they close it. You know how that happens? Well, QuickPrint was at that time. You know, every company in its history has the same flow. No matter what company it is, it's proven that it has the same flow. Usually, if they're successful, they'll skyrocket up, and there will be a plateau. And then they have to reinvent themselves. Either that, or they're going to stay at the plateau, or slowly go down in sales and things. Well, this was at that time, after 30 years. You know, QuickPrint was doing a little bit of things that was kind of at the top and wasn't growing like he was accustomed to for the 30 years. He was so used to having that be who he is that even though I think that they got away with not saying it was, he committed suicide by taking his car home one day and just driving. He was going something like 90 miles an hour on this interstate toward his house, and we drove it off of a bridge. Now, I think he was able to get out of being suicide, because suicide would have stopped the life insurance. But Wayne had gotten so connected to that went to his financial prowess, that when it didn't go the way it was what he was accustomed to, that was the end of why live anymore. We may have that same situation in us in some other area. Maybe not financial. Maybe our kids. Maybe something else. We have to be careful of what we think and what we place our value on, because you are the image and likeness of God. And God is unlimited. God is not based on one thing. So material thoughts make a material body, but spiritual thoughts make up a spiritual body. And that's why we join in church. That's why we think about unity. That's why we read those books. That's why we go to class. That's why we learn more about our spiritual beingness. Is because that is so important for our daily life. Our physical body is not only an expression of that, but it's a small, dinky little part of our life. It is. And I want us all to be successful in all areas, yet if we aren't successful in our spiritual understanding, we won't be. This is where we have to be. We have to spiritually understand what we are. And now we'll get to spirit. Spirit, as far as the definition in the revealing word, God is the moving force in the universe. Principle as the breath of life in all creation. The principle of life, creative intelligence, and life. Spirit is that part of us that isn't limited, that's going to live on forever. So is divine mind, but we have to kind of explain it the way I have today to get all of it down. Spirit is the part of us that lives life. That is the true part of us that is life. You know, in this, if we're talking about just the outer and talking about things that most people talk about, because all we're focused on is our senses, what we can pick up with our senses without talking spirituality, then we're talking about a lifespan that only is what, 60, 70, 80 years, whatever it is then. But that is a small, minute part of our life. Our spirit is our life. We sometimes discover within ourselves a flow of thought that has been evolved independently of the reasoning process, the outside, and we are puzzled about its origin and its safety as a guide. That's kind of like talking like stepping out in faith. This is what I'm feeling like I'm guided to do, yet, gosh, I need to cross this bridge that's not there, and I can't see my next step, and I'm scared. Just like I said at the beginning, sometimes we have to keep on keeping on. If we know we're on the right path, it doesn't mean that and it sometimes can look like stubbornness. I mean, I've been accused of that a lot, being stubborn. I hope more so in my past than now, but who knows? But you're not supposed to be laughing. But anyway, if we know that that's the right path, if we've been guided that by a spiritual understanding, then we have to stay on that path. And if other people are being offended by it, say, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to offend you, it's just that this is my path I need to follow. I love you very much. And sometimes we don't see that. I know that I can give examples. You know, even since we've been here, I can give examples on how we get, or how I get confused on what is mine to do when it comes to relationships. You know, we all want the best for our kids, and when we see our kids doing something other than what's the best for them, we sometimes get caught up in it. And even though we'd like to change whatever their path is at this moment, we can't do it. It's impossible. They have to make their own choices. But we can love them. We can love them and help them in different ways by seeing that Christ light within them, expressing however it expresses. By seeing the Spirit within them. Spirit, in its beginnings, this seemingly strange source of knowledge is turned aside as a daydream. We've done that, I think, at least I have. Again, it seems a distant voice, an echo of something that we have heard and forgotten. And that is the truth, isn't it?
Yes.
I brought up Aiden a little bit ago because we all do know this already. Within ourselves, our beingness is pure spirit. Our beingness, the divine mind, our mind, all of these answers are there. Even our small end mind has all the answers. Yet we've covered it up sometimes, those answers, with stuff that we've learned along the way. We need to relearn the truth sometimes. One should give attention to this unusual and usually faint whispering of spirit in man. Now, I will tell you that in addition to that, it's not going to always be faint. And as you develop your spiritual understanding, it won't be faint at all. Sometimes it can be shouting. It can be shouting at you from the rooftops. It's kind of like the old joke, you know, the guy sitting there on the, maybe we could use Baton Rouge in this, but, you know, the guy sitting there on the roof, flooding town, and a boat comes by and says, hey, come on, you got to get out. And he says, no, I prayed to God and God's going to come get me. And then the firemen come by and say, hey, you got to get out. This is your last chance. The floods are rising still more. I said, nope, I told God talk to God and God's going to help me. He ends up dying of drowning and goes to pearly gates, and pearly gates say, well, why didn't you take the boats that I sent you? And he said, because I said that God was going to go. Come get me. And I just ruined the joke, but anyway, he said, I sent you 2 boats, what's wrong with you? Anyway. Okay, it's kind of like that though sometimes. You know, it isn't always faint. I mean, we may not recognize it at the time. You know, I will tell you another story real quick. I was younger, I was I don't know, I was probably 16 or 17, I was probably 16. I was driving this trailer, I was working at a lumber yard, and I had this trailer behind the truck, and it was probably a 14-foot trailer, flatbed trailer. And I had, you know what old siding looks like, that masonite siding? Big old strips, they're 16 foot long. I had them on the trailer, and I forgot to boom them. Boom them means put a chain on it and pull it and make it tight so it won't go anywhere. Well, anyway, there's this, in Kingman, Kansas, there's this main street and 54 highway, which is the main highway through the town, main highway east and west in Kansas, and besides 70. And anyway, I'm sitting there on Main Street, turning left onto the highway, and that darn thing went everywhere. And those 16-foot sheets, and they're not light, those masonite sheets were not light. They were only about this wide, but they were 16 foot long, so they were, you know, really bowy. And so had them all over the highway on Main Street. This gentleman, nice gentleman, come out. I was mad. Come out and said, hey, can I help you? I said, hell no, you can't help me. Don't you see I just spilled this all over the highway? That's how stupid I was at the time to see my good in the situation. That probably would have saved me a lot of time from picking that up. Of course, he didn't offer again. I don't blame him. I don't blame him. But at that time in my life, you know, I was not wanting to receive or willing to receive obvious help that would have helped. Spirit is a development in man of a greater capacity to know himself and to understand the purpose of creation. That right there, the purpose of creation, is something that we all come about in life, no matter who we are. At some point in life, we ask ourselves, what's this all about? What's the purpose of creation? What is the purpose of creation? One of the purposes is to know that mind, body, and spirit all come together to create here on earth. And we are unlimited when we understand it all goes together. Oops. Resilience on spirit. When one concentrates all the faculties of truth ideas, in other words, the 12 powers, the conscious mind and superconsciousness, like I said earlier, blend, and there is a descent of spiritual energies into soul and body. Now what that is doing, just to tell you, is messing with the part that all of us get confused in sometimes, and that's our subconsciousness. Because the superconsciousness was your divine mind, and the consciousness of what we're aware of and how we live. In between those is the subconsciousness. And the subconsciousness holds everything that's ever happened to us. And not only does it hold everything that's ever happened to us, but it holds in this physical part of life. But not only does it hold everything that's happened to us in this physical part of life, it holds what we have named that experience. It holds what we have named that experience. So if I've got things in my subconsciousness that I've named bad, they're still bad in my mind, isn't there? I have to purge that. I have to go in and say, hey, you know what? I may not have enjoyed that experience, but I don't have to live it again and again and again and again and again. I can release it right now. I'm not giving you any more